Which one do you prefer? Formal English or informal English? Hello, my name is Maddie from POC English, and in this lesson we are going to learn some formal alternatives to informal English words. First of all, I have a question. Which one is better, formal English or informal English? The answer is none of them is better than the other one. It totally depends on your audience. Who are you talking to? Who are you writing to? If you are writing an email to your boss, you should use formal English. However, if you are hanging out with your friends, you shouldn't speak in a formal way. That would sound weird. You should use informal English. So it totally depends on your audience. Now, in this lesson, we're going to talk about both informal and formal English. I'm going to teach you some very cool formal alternatives to everyday informal words. Let's begin. Before we start, if you want to have the summary of this lesson in a single PDF file with all the formal and informal alternatives with their example sentences, you simply have to give me your email address and I will send it to you for free. How? Go to my website, the link is above my head. Click on the link, go to my website, enter your email address, and that's it. Look at this sentence. The fire department couldn't find out the cause of fire. Now this sentence is formal or informal? This is informal. Why? Because we have the phrasal verb find out. In general, phrasal verbs are informal. Now, instead of find out, what can we say? We can say ascertain. Ascertain. To ascertain means to discover something or to find something out. So, instead of this, I can say the fire department couldn't ascertain the cause of fire. Or here's one more example. The police have been unable to ascertain the cause of explosion. The police have been unable to ascertain the cause of explosion. It means they weren't able to find out what led to the explosion. So to ascertain means to find out. To ascertain the cause of something means to find out the reason behind something. Now, look at this sentence. I'll try to get some info about the company. I'll try to get some info about the company. Imagine I want to go for a job interview, and before going for a job interview, I need to prepare, right? I need to study a little bit about the history of the company, about who's the boss now, about the orientation of the firm. So, before going on the job interview, I'll try to get some info about the company. Now, this is informal because, we have a short form. Instead of information, we have info. It's clearly informal, but there is another reason. Instead of get, I can use a more formal alternative. Obtain. So I can say, I'll try to obtain some information about the company. Or one more example, look at this book. It's impossible to get the first edition of this book. It's impossible to get the first edition of this book. Instead of get, I can say obtain. It's impossible to obtain the first edition of this book. Now, look at this sentence. We are short of cash, so we should buy something cheaper. We're short of cash, so we should buy something cheaper. Is this formal or informal? Obviously, it's informal, right? Now let's try to make this sentence more formal. Instead of short of cash, which means we don't have much money, I can say we have a limited budget. Have a limited budget, right? This is more formal. Instead of the verb buy, what can I say? I can use the verb purchase. Purchase. Purchase is a very formal word. And instead of cheap, I can say inexpensive. Inexpensive. Now, instead of cheaper, I can say more inexpensive. So, by using these alternatives, I can make this sentence formal. We have a limited budget, so we should purchase something more inexpensive. Now, look at this sentence. He was late, so he made up an excuse to avoid trouble. He was late, so he made up an excuse to avoid trouble. Yes, there was heavy traffic. Or no, oh, I had an accident. Are these excuses real? No, they are fake. He's making them up. To make something up means to invent something, to make false information. Now, make up is a phrasal verb, and as I said earlier, phrasal verbs are informal. Instead of make up, what can I say to make this sentence more formal? I can say fabricate. It's a very formal verb. Fabricate. To fabricate means to invent something, to make something up, to create false information. He was late, so he fabricated an excuse to avoid trouble. Or here's another example with the verb fabricate. That story wasn't real. It was made up. Instead of made up, I can say fabricated. That story wasn't real. It was fabricated. You can also use an adverb to make it stronger. That story wasn't real. It was totally fabricated. It means it was completely fake. Now, look at this one. The president started his speech. Started his speech. Well, this is not very informal and not really formal. We can make this more formal by using an alternative instead of start. Instead of start, what can I say? I can say begin. That's right. But there is another very formal verb. Commence. To commence means to begin, to start, and it's very formal. So, instead of this, I can say, the president commenced his speech. It means he started his speech. Or look at this example. Shall we start the meeting? Instead of start, say commence. Shall we commence the meeting? Now, to make it even more formal, you can also use passive structure and say, shall the meeting be commenced? Whoa, that is really formal. But guys, when I say it's really formal, I don't mean it's really good to use it. No, I mean, it depends on your audience. You always have to think of your audience. Who am I talking to? Who am I writing to? You don't want to use this sentence when you're talking to your parents. Or if you're hanging out with your best friend, you don't want to speak like this. If you are hanging out with a group of friends and then you want to start drinking beer, you don't say, hey, I want to commence drinking beer. That sounds weird. So it's all about your audience. Look at this one more example. We will start building work in August. We will start building work in August. Instead of start, say commence. We will commence building work in August. Okay, now look at this sentence. The documentary is about a woman who goes to China. The documentary is about a woman who goes to China. Instead of is about, I can say concerns. When you want to say something is about another thing or a subject is about another subject, instead of is about, you can say concerns. The documentary concerns a woman who goes to China. Or look at this example. We need to talk. It's about our future. What can I say instead of this to make it more formal? We need to talk. It concerns our future. And one last sentence. Before we get to this last sentence, I want to remind you again that if you want to receive the summary of this lesson in a PDF file with all the formal and informal alternatives, their meanings and their example sentences in a single PDF file. And if you want to receive all my future lesson summaries whenever I post a new lesson on YouTube, you simply have to give me your email address. By going to my website, click on the link above my head, and entering your email address. And now to the last sentence. Eating organic food is good for our health. Eating organic food is good for our health. How can I make this more formal? Well, instead of eat, I can say consume. Consume, which is a formal alternative to eat. For example, bodybuilders should consume more protein than normal people. It means they should eat more protein. Another thing we can change in this sentence is good for. Instead of good for, we can use a very, very interesting adjective. beneficial. Beneficial. But pay attention, the preposition of good is for, but the preposition of beneficial is to. So I can say protein is good for your health or protein is beneficial to your health. And now, look at this sentence and let's make it more formal. Consuming organic food is beneficial to our health. You can also use beneficial with the word effect and say has a beneficial effect on. Consuming organic food has a beneficial effect on our body. Notice that I changed the preposition beneficial effect on because the preposition of effect is on. And that's it, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. Don't forget to practice. See you.